Michael Schumacher is a name synonymous with Formula One. The 7-time world champion broke all the records and propelled F1 to the forefront in his homeland of Germany. But how did he get there, and what made him such a successful driver? Well, let's find out. Born on the 3rd of January 1969 in Hurt, a small town near Cologne in Germany, Michael began his motorsport journey in karting. He became a winner from a young age, taking his first club-level karting championship at just 6 years old, using a kart that was made from leftover materials and handed-down parts. By 1984, he had won the German karting championship, and 3 years later, he was both the German and European karting champion. The following year, he made the step up to German Formula Ford and Formula Koenig, with him taking the overall win in the latter on his first attempt. His dominance of the lower formulas continued, taking the German Formula 3 title in 1990 and the Macau Grand Prix. It was in the same year that Schumacher joined the Mercedes Young Driver program and began racing in the World Sports Car Series, the pinnacle of endurance sports car racing at the time. Schumacher impressed, and despite only taking part in a third of the season, he still managed to finish 5th overall in the standings, taking a win at the final round of the season in Mexico. Schumacher's journey towards Formula One seemed inevitable at this point. Off the back of a successful Formula 3 campaign, Eddie Jordan entered Formula One as a team owner with Jordan Grand Prix. Jordan initially had Andrea De Cesaris and Bertrand Gachot as drivers for the 1991 season. Due to an altercation with a taxi driver, Gachot was sentenced to 18 months in prison. This left Jordan a hole in its driver lineup for the upcoming Belgian Grand Prix. After a test with Jordan at Silverstone, Mercedes paid $150,000 to allow Schumacher to drive for the team at Spa. His manager managing to convince Jordan that Schumacher was experienced with the fast and dangerous circuit, despite having never actually driven there. Schumacher's Formula One career was off to a fantastic start when he managed to qualify the Jordan car in 7th place, equaling the team's best qualifying position on his attempt and beating his new teammate at a circuit he'd never driven before, no less. Unfortunately, his debut race didn't go so smoothly. A clutch failure at the start of the race forced a retirement on the first lap. However, his performance in qualifying had done enough to get the paddock talking about him. Initially, an agreement had been put in place that would see Schumacher driving for Jordan for the remainder of the season. The Benetton team, however, approached Schumacher intending to have him drive their car for the rest of 1991. Due to having not signed a contract tying him to Jordan, Schumacher joined Benetton for the final 5 races of the season. His teammate for the final stretch of the season was 3-time world champion Nelson Piquet. Schumacher only scored half a point less than Piquet in the 5 races they raced together at Benetton, and outqualified him 4 out of the 5 times. An impressive feat for a driver new to the paddock. Piquet was admittedly at the end of his Formula One career, 91 being his final year. But going toe-to-toe with a 3-time world champion is no small task, nonetheless. 92 and 93 were years dominated by Williams. Nigel Mansell and Alain Prost dominated, both taking a championship each. Despite this, Schumacher managed his first podium in Formula One, with a 3rd place at the Mexican Grand Prix. And the year after, he made his debut for Jordan, and took his first win at the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa. 1994 was a difficult year for Formula One as a whole. The tragic loss of Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger at Imola earlier in the year overshadowed much of the season. Despite this, driving the Benetton B194, a notoriously difficult car, Schumacher finally took his first Drivers' Championship on only his third full year of trying. Schumacher and Benetton's season was tinged with controversy throughout. From potential technical infringements early in the season to a disqualification and 2-race ban after Silverstone for overtaking on the formation lap, then subsequently ignoring the black flag issued. Schumacher was also disqualified from the Belgian Grand Prix due to illegal wear on the skid blocks beneath the car. Incidents and penalties aside, Schumacher still finished first in every race that he was classified in, except the Japanese Grand Prix, where he finished second. The run of disqualifications and exclusions had allowed Damon Hill in the Williams to drastically reduce the points deficit to Schumacher, with only a single point separating them at the final race of the season in Adelaide. Schumacher eventually took the title in Australia, despite not finishing the race, due to a controversial incident with Hill on lap 36. A mistake by Schumacher caused him to hit a guardrail and, while returning to the track, colliding with the overtaking Hill, taking them both out of the race. 1995 went far smoother for Schumacher and the Benetton team. Partnered with Johnny Herbert, the team took both the Drivers' Championship with Schumacher and the Constructors' Championship, beating the Williams pairing of Damon Hill and David Coulthard by 33 points. If you're enjoying the video, please consider giving it a like and hitting the subscribe button to see more F1 content just like this. Now, despite having 2 successful years with Benetton, winning him the Drivers' Championship on both accounts, Schumacher chose to leave the team a year before his contract expired to join Ferrari in 1996. Schumacher took only 3 wins in his debut season with the Scuderia, the highlight of these being an outstanding drive in a wet Spanish Grand Prix. A drive that is often cited as being one of the best of his entire career and earned him the nickname of Rainmaster, due to being up to 5 seconds a lap faster than the entire field in difficult conditions. 1997 was another controversial year for Schumacher, with him disqualified from the entire season due to an incident with Jacques Villeneuve at the European Grand Prix, where Schumacher seemingly deliberately turned in on Villeneuve in an attempt to end the Canadian's race. By this point, Schumacher had gained somewhat of a reputation for being a driver who would do whatever it took to win. The final 2 years of the 90s saw McLaren and Mika Häkkinen in a dominant position. Schumacher was taken out of the title race early on in '99 due to a crash at Silverstone. The crash resulted in a broken leg, and as such he would miss much of the season. Upon his return for the Malaysian Grand Prix, playing a support role to his teammate, Eddie Irvine, who was challenging Häkkinen for the title. The new millennium saw a shift in the dynamics of Formula One. Challenges from Williams and later McLaren throughout the 90s were over, and a new era of dominance from Ferrari and Schumacher was about to begin. The year 2000 saw Michael winning his 3rd Drivers' Championship. He took an early lead, securing victory at the first 3 races of the season, despite reigning champion Mika Häkkinen qualifying on pole for all 3. The next 10 races saw McLaren and Ferrari going back and forth, trading wins. Ultimately, though, Schumacher dominated the end of the season, taking 4 straight victories, finishing 19 points clear of Mika at the end of the year. This dominance will continue until 2005, with Schumacher taking a further 4 championships, 5 in a row for Ferrari, making him the first ever 7-time world champion. Something that was only matched relatively recently by Lewis Hamilton. Fernando Alonso and the Renault team would break the streak in 2005, comprehensively crushing the competition and taking his first of 2 back-to-back World Championships for the French team. After the Italian Grand Prix in 2006, Ferrari and Schumacher announced his retirement from racing. He would, however, continue to work for the team. He departed from active racing as the most successful Formula 1 driver in history, holding over 30 records with 7 championships, 91 wins, and 68 pole positions to name but a few. In a shock announcement made towards the end of 2009, Schumacher announced that not only was he returning to Formula 1 as an active driver, but he would be returning to drive for the company that backed him as a young driver, Mercedes. He would partner Nico Rosberg as the newly formed Mercedes Works team. The new team was born out of the ashes of the Brawn GP team that took both titles in 2009. Ross Brawn, who had been instrumental in the success during Schumacher's time at Ferrari, continued as team principal. The 2010 Mercedes car was underdeveloped and not especially competitive compared to the Brawn car it was derived from, with Schumacher scoring a best finish of 4th across the whole season. Nico Rosberg fared better, however, picking up 3 podiums in 2010. It was the first time in his career that he was beaten over the year by a teammate. 2011 didn't fare much better. Mercedes couldn't get anywhere near the Red Bull cars, which were displaying a streak of dominance similar to Ferrari in the early 2000s. Neither Mercedes drivers scored a podium in 2011. However, they were much closer together in the final standings for the year, being separated by only 13 points. Once again, Nico was the top driver at Mercedes. 2012 started strongly, however, a string of retirements in the first half of the season put Schumacher massively on the back foot. Monaco saw the final pole position of his career, with a stunning lap around the streets of the Principality, putting him in the top spot. However, a penalty carried over from the previous race saw him start 6th, and he retired from the race with a car issue. Mercedes announced in 2012 that for the following year, Lewis Hamilton would be joining the Silver Arrows for McLaren. Consequently, over the Japanese Grand Prix weekend, Schumacher announced his second and final retirement from Formula 1, with the 2012 Brazilian Grand Prix being his last in the sport. A year after retiring from Formula 1, in December of 2013, Schumacher was skiing in the French Alps with his son, Mick. Michael was known to be an experienced skier who spent much of his free time on the slopes. While out, an unfortunate accident occurred, with Michael falling and hitting his head on a rock. Despite wearing a helmet, his injuries were severe and he was lucky to be alive. After several rounds of surgery and being in a coma, he left the hospital in the summer of 2014, returning home to recover. Schumacher was always very private, taking a lot of care to keep his family out of the spotlight. This privacy continued after he retired and his accident. Very few details of his condition have ever been released, and any speculation from journalists has often been met with legal challenges. Michael hasn't been seen in public since the accident in 2013, now over a decade later, and his condition is largely still a mystery. Michael Schumacher's legacy is immutable. He set a new standard for drivers in Formula 1, be it in physical fitness, performance on the track, or work ethic. While many of the records that he set have gone on to be broken by Lewis Hamilton, his mark on the sport can still be felt today, with his name still being at or near the top of many stats screens. He is still considered by many to be the greatest driver of all time. And while it's unfair and almost impossible to compare drivers from different eras, he stands tall next to the likes of Fangio, Senna and Hamilton. What did you think of Michael Schumacher? Is he the greatest driver of all time for you? Or does someone else eclipse him? Let us know your thoughts on Schumacher down in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to see more videos just like this. Thank you for watching.